ahead and get started. Welcome to Bike to Work Day 101. I'm Sarah McGowan, the Director of Programs at the Dulles Area Transportation Association. We are a nonprofit that works with employers to develop sustainable transportation options for their employees. Our services are grant funded and always free. We love supporting people who are interested in getting out of their car and discovering the benefits of metro, carpooling, connector bus, and of course, bikes, which is why we are super excited about today and getting people introduced to Bike to Work Day. Today, we're very grateful to be partnering with the Fairfax Alliance for Better Bicycling, FABB, and for the expertise of its founder and president, Bruce Wright, who will be leading this webinar. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind you, we have a little raffle at the end for a $50 gift certificate to the bike lane, which is located in Reston. Also, just housekeeping, we want to keep this kind of informal. If you have a question, feel free to raise your hand and I'll call on you and you can ask Bruce directly. Or if you feel more comfortable typing it into the chat, I'll be monitoring that. We also plan to have a Q&A at the end if you prefer to wait until the end. And so now let me go ahead. I'm going to introduce Bruce Wright. As you might have read, he is the founder and president of FABB. He is a League Certified Bicycling Instructor who teaches Learn to Ride and bicycle safety courses. And he has been a daily bike commuter for more than 20 years. Here he is.
Thank you, Sarah. I reminded myself to unmute myself. Yeah, thanks for this opportunity. I will go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. And let me go ahead and start the slideshow. And as Sarah mentioned, I'm Bruce Wright with Fairfax Alliance for Better Bicycling. We're an organization that works to make bicycling better for everyone in Fairfax County. We should all be able to safely bike around for short and long trips, both for commuting and for recreation, and for just short trips to the grocery store or wherever. And let me just start sharing again. Yeah, it's a fun way to get to work. There aren't many bike commuters who don't like their commute, and you can't say that about most people who take other modes. And companies that are bike friendly can attract new employees. Newer, younger employees want other ways to get around: biking, scootering, metro, and so on, and without having to drive. And so it's a great way for employers to attract employees. And it's just better all around for the environment and for our communities. As I said, we have fun. We also save money. Obviously, owning and maintaining a bike costs much less than a car. It's unbelievable how much it costs to own and maintain a car just for a year. You may not be able to get rid of your car, but you would certainly use less gas and require less maintenance if you could bike some or all of your days to work. There is a proposal right now to allow bike commuters, regular bike commuters, to get a $20 a month benefit. There was a bike benefit that expired, and there's another effort to get that done under this Congress. It's probably doubtful that it'll happen, but there is a proposal out there. And employers can provide their own benefits to employees on their own without any kind of a government subsidy. Bike commuting is surprisingly very competitive with driving to work and with taking transit. For one of the Bike to Work days in Reston, I challenged my local delegate Ken Plum. We both lived on the same street, and we had a contest to see how long it would take to get to the Reston Town Center, which is about 3.5 miles away. I was going to ride my bike. He was going to drive his Prius, park it, and then walk to where the pit stop would be located. And I beat Ken by about, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes. Actually, my wife and I both beat him. because we had fewer traffic signals. We're lucky we have the W&OD trail in this area. But the nice thing about riding by bike is there's two things. One, we're moving most of the time. When you're driving, you're waiting at traffic signals for an unbelievable amount of time. And two, you generally know how long it's going to take you to get there. When you're driving, anything can happen on the road. When you're riding a bike, things can happen, but generally, you know, it's going to take, X amount of time to get there. And it's just a simple solution to many of our problems. You can consider yourself part of the solution when if you can bike part of the time or regularly. So you need a bike. Well, there's two ways of getting a bike. You can have your own, or you can use Capital Bike Share. But I'll talk a little bit about different kinds of bikes. This is a hybrid bike on the right. Whoops, sorry about that. You can use really just about any bike as long as it's in good working order. And we'll talk a little bit about some bikes that are better and some equipment that's better for commuting. But there's a whole slew of different bikes, as I'm sure you know, road, mountain, hybrid, cross, and so on. This is a hybrid bike on the right. And I'll give examples of some other bikes. So if you don't have a bike, if you're interested in getting a bike, I would recommend going to a regular bike shop rather than a big box store so that you can get properly fitted on the bike and you can get a good recommendation for which kind of bike is appropriate for your kind of riding. The bikes are categorized as either road, mountain, as I said, and some of that depends on the size of their tires. Now, in order to carry stuff, either groceries or clothes or a computer, it's probably best to have a rack, which is a piece that goes on the back or the front of the bike, and you can drape it with what are called panniers. These are bags that carry stuff. It's better than a backpack. A backpack kind of weighs you down, and when it's hot, you can get a big sweaty spot on the back of your shirt. On the left is a road bike. You can see it has dropped handlebars and is more for recreation, especially without any kind of gear for carrying things. On the right is a folding bike, which are great for taking on metro or for easily putting in your car if you're going to drive to like a park and ride and you want to ride for part of your trip. That's a great option. This is an adult sport trike, which you might see. There's a shop in Vienna that sells these. Very relaxed, very fun way to get around. This is a hybrid, and it's got fenders, a rack in the back, and then these are panniers for carrying things. I mentioned Capital Bike Share. These are two happy Capital Bike Share riders. And those are the bikes that you can rent either by the hour, by the day, and so on. These are traditional bikes. They now have electric bikes, Capital Share e-bikes. With Capital Bike Share, there are different membership levels, and you can join for an annual membership, which is currently $95, and that allows you as a member to ride for up to 45 minutes for free. So the stations are spread out so that you can easily do that between stations. You can ride, and beyond that, per minute, it's 5 cents. For e-bikes, it's an extra 10 cents per minute for members. If you're a non-member, you can unlock a classic bike for just $1, and then it's 5 cents per minute. And then an extra charge to unlock an e-bike, and then a little bit extra per minute for the e-bike rate. Yeah, so the 5 cents a minute is for the classic bike. So anyway, it's a great option. Daily memberships are $8, and they allow you to ride these 45 minutes for free on the e-bikes. And this is the network. They've recently expanded it here in Reston to south of Reston. The symbols, the red symbols mean there's no bikes there. So you would use the app to find out what the status of the bikes in your area are. The green ones indicate there's plenty of bikes there. You can ride from, say, Reston into Tyson's, and it's all part of the same network down into Merrifield and so on. And you can see the black e-bike symbols as well. So this is just in the Fairfax County area. There's a really extensive network in the district. So you've got a bike, you're getting ready to ride to work. What we recommend for whenever you're out getting ready to ride is you do the ABC quick check. A stands for air. You want to make sure that you've got plenty of air, and bike tires will lose air over time. So you want to just give them a squeeze, make sure it's nice and firm. If it's at all soft, then you need to make sure you have enough air, and it'll say on the side of the tire how much air is required. And there's usually a range, and so you can go anywhere within that range. You want to make sure the brakes are working well, that the wheels are not rubbing against the brakes. And then you just, once in a while, you want to check to make sure the chain is well lubed and the cranks are nice and tight. And then the wheels can have quick releases, and you want to make sure those are nice and secure. And then just do a quick ride around your home, your neighborhood, just to make sure everything's in order before you head out on a longer ride. So finding a good route. One of the best ways to do that is through Google Maps. Google Maps has bicycle directions, and that, along with Street View, will give you a really good idea whether you think that route is comfortable. The Fairfax County bike route map is another good option. They have paper maps, and there's also an online map. And then Arlington and Alexandria both have bike maps. And some people use applications that allow them to either record their ride or navigate an existing ride. And you can do that with Ride with GPS and an app called Strava. So this is what bike directions look like with Google Maps. So you see the various options: car, transit, walk, or bike. So this is a route. The starting location is Lake Ann in Reston. The destination is Reston Town Center. Plug those two in, click on the bike symbol. It'll then give you turn-by-turn directions and tell you approximately how long it'll take you to get there. To drive from here to here takes about 5 minutes. Then you park and then you walk. So you can see that it's very comparable. And these other gray options are other possibilities. So you can then combine that with Google Maps Street View, where, let me see if it shows. This doesn't show, but there's usually, and you're probably familiar with this, a little man icon or person icon in the lower right that you can drag onto one of these roads, and it'll then show you the view from the street. And you can see here on the right is a bike lane that's been striped there. And then on the left is a symbol called the sharrow, which indicates where cyclists should ride in this lane, because there is no dedicated facility. And then motorists would have to safely pass you. This is what the legend for the Fairfax County bike map looks like. There's various levels of comfort. You would probably want to look for a primary trail, which is in purple, or a road that is in green, which is most comfortable, or in blue for somewhat comfortable. So this route from Lake Ann contains this blue route and then a purple route. This very thick purple route is the W&OD trail. And as I mentioned earlier, we're very fortunate to have such an excellent facility that goes from all the way out in Purcellville down to Arlington. And then this other line is the Fairfax County Parkway Trail, which is another great trail that extends from Route 7 all the way south down to Route 1. And we're at the confluence of both of those trails here in the Reston Herndon area. You can also combine various modes. You know, some people will drive, say they live in Leesburg, they'll drive into Route 28 and along the W&OD trail, park there, and then ride into Herndon, Reston, Vienna, or Tysons. And so, or you could drive to a park and ride, put your bike on a bus rack, and then get close to your destination and ride from there. The Fairfax Connector has bike racks on all of their buses, and you can take your bikes on Metro as long as you use the end entries for each of the cars. And you can do that during rush hour. It was at one time not possible to do that, but through advocacy, they opened it up. And these days, Metro maybe isn't quite as crowded as it was before COVID. So you can take your bike on anytime. And what's really one of the best ideas is to do a dry run. If you haven't done this before, do a dry run on the weekend and just see what the route looks like, see how long it's going to take you, and get an indication of what it's like to be carrying gear and so on. I mentioned a rack and panniers or a basket in the front, and that panniers work out the best. As I said, these are panniers. These can be taken off or left on the bike. We'll talk a little bit about parking strategies, but so for clothing, as I mentioned, I commuted for 20 years at the USGS, and I never wore bike clothes. In the summer, I would wear shorts and a t-shirt, and I would get into work, and if it was really hot, I would wipe myself down maybe with a towel and just have a change of clothes maybe at work or take them with me. But in the morning, even in the summer, it's relatively mild. And when it's hot in the afternoon, it's not such a big deal to come home a hot, sweaty mess. That's definitely a challenge, but by riding slow, there's all that evaporative cooling that happens that really helps. Packing strategies, you can get good at folding your clothes or rolling them so that they are halfway presentable when you get to work. Or if you're fortunate, you can store your clothes at work and possibly even have a locker at work to use, and showers as well. And Fairfax County has been good about encouraging developers to build in locker and shower rooms and bike rooms in new commercial buildings. And it's good to have a little deodorant and wipes at work. So obviously the best type of parking is covered, secure parking near the entrance. We may not have the best parking, but some of the newer facilities have pretty good parking. But it's always a challenge. You might have to work with your employer to encourage them to provide better bike parking. I do have a little section on bike keep in the Reston Town Center. There is free, secure parking. That's a great benefit to anyone who bikes in that area. There's an app, a free app that you can use to unlock the lockers or the racks. And you can also use your Smart Trip card. So if you're biking to the town center, it's a great option. You want to always lock your bike to an immovable object, not to itself or something that could be easily removed. So an inverted U rack is the best. Something like this where you can connect the bike in a couple of different places and it can be flush up against the rack. And I mentioned these racks at the Reston Town Center. These are the lockers. This is the interface for the lockers. These are the racks. There's an arm that comes down, you unlock, and then and it fits just about every bike. E-bikes might be a little bit of a challenge, but These are the lockers, and they aren't being used very heavily, so they're almost always open, and the app will tell you whether there's a space there, so you can check ahead of time. So it's always best to be safe and to wear a helmet. You don't have to wear a helmet. It's not required. It's only required for anyone 16 or younger. I always wear a helmet, but occasionally I'll use a bike share bike and I won't have my helmet with me, but I just ride safely. In Europe, almost no one uses a helmet, but they have very safe bicycling facilities. Motorists are much more used to traveling around bicyclists. The best way to prevent injury, though, is to know the rules of the road, to know how to handle your bike and avoid hazards. And I'll just put a plug in for FABB. We are holding bike learn to ride lessons this year, and we're holding a couple of safe riding skills classes throughout the summer. Now, if you're going to ride at night, especially in the wintertime, a headlight in the front is required at night. A rear light is not required, but it's highly recommended. You can have a rear reflector, which is what the law says, but we always recommend having a light. And I also have a light with a video camera so that if there's an incident on the road, I can record it for future use. And you want to just make sure your lights are always charged up. And so you want to make sure you can be seen at night. I always wear bright clothing, and I teach kids how to ride a bike, and I always ask them, is it better to wear bright clothing or dark clothing when you're riding? And they all get it right. They all know that you're better off wearing bright clothing or reflective clothing. It's unfortunate that we've got to think that way, but it does help, we think. And straps for your pants legs if you're going to wear pants, and those can be reflective as well, which really helps. So there's some very reflective, happy people. This was a FABB group that went down to an event down in the district. So this is on the Mount Vernon Trail. It's always a good idea to carry tools. The minimum would be, if you're going to carry tools, a pump, a spare tube, and tire levers. It's a reality that occasionally you will have a flat tire. Obviously, you could carry a cell phone and either call an Uber or a friend to come pick you up. The best way to prevent that is to be checking your bike to make sure your tires are in good shape and that you avoid any hazards out there on the road. So regular inspections of the bike are very useful, and taking it in once a year to have a bike shop take a look at it. It's going to cost, $100 or more to have a full maintenance check done, but it's well worth it, especially when you compare that cost to what it costs to maintain a car. I also carry a multi-tool for tightening nuts and bolts and so on. And I mentioned the fenders and the rack. The fenders are nice. You can kind of see them here. If you run across a wet patch, you're not going to get a stripe on your back. And if it does rain, you can ride through the rain without getting totally drenched. So you're out there riding, and where do you ride? Well, the other question I ask kids is, where do you ride? Do you ride on the right with traffic or on the left against traffic? And about half of them get it wrong. And that's partly because we don't do a very good job of teaching kids the rules of the road in school. But we always ride on the right. We always obey all the traffic laws, or at least we're supposed to. Some cyclists have gotten a bad reputation because there's a lot of scofflaw cyclists that may not come to a complete stop, but there's a lot of scofflaw motorists as well. And there is an effort to allow cyclists to roll through stop signs, which most drivers do, and most cyclists do too, but it would just make that legal as long as you can do that safely. So an intersection, you want to ride in the rightmost lane that leads to your destination. So if you need to make a left turn and there's a dual left turn lane, you would be in the right lane so that you end up in the rightmost lane after you've turned. We're in the Virginia law, it says we should ride to the right as far as practicable. And that means, it doesn't mean you have to ride on the very edge on the curb. You need to ride where you have plenty of space. And if there are any debris or potholes or car doors, you're not required to ride too far to the right. You can ride in the center of the lane if it's a narrow lane, and motorists will have to stop or will have to pass you safely. On a road that has a solid yellow line, motorists are allowed to pass a cyclist. Not a lot of motorists know that, but that allows us to ride in the lane where it's appropriate. So ride to the right, avoid hazards, signal. And so you see the images for signaling, right, left, stopping. The left hand raised straight up is a kind of a traditional way of signaling a right turn. It's kind of gone out of fashion. It's legal to use either method to signal right or left. And as I mentioned, if the lane is too narrow, we can ride a little bit further out into the lane, and motorists are required to pass us. So as I mentioned, I'm with Fairfax Alliance for Better Bicycling, and we're at fab-bikes.org. And we have a resources page with a lot of information about bike maps, bike commuting, and so on. If you need to get in touch with me, you can contact me at bruce@fab-bikes.org. WABA is the area-wide bike advocacy organization. They focus mostly on the district, but we do work with them here in Reston to advocate for better bike facilities. Then there's an organization out in Loudon, Bike Loudon. And then the nationwide group is League of American Bicyclists. And they're a great kind of nationwide advocacy organization. Before we get to questions, I did want to mention there's a couple of riding events that are coming up. On May 7th is the Tour to Hunter Mill, and that's being sponsored by the Hunter Mill District Office. Supervisor Alcorn is promoting that ride. And there are 3 routes. There's a family ride, there's a short ride, and then a longer, about 30-mile ride in the Reston-Herndon area. And they stay off of the WNOD trail, which can get very crowded on weekends. And so that's a great way to get out and explore the area a little bit. And then we think on May 15th will be the ribbon cutting for the I-66 trail. You're probably all aware that the I-66 is being expanded outside the Beltway. Well, part of that is a paved trail that goes from Gallows Road all the way out to the county boundary. And so part of that trail will be open, and there will be an event at the Vienna Metro where there'll be a ribbon cutting and a short ride to show off some of that trail. So with that, let's open it up for any questions. Sarah, are there any questions?
See any? You're pretty thorough, Bruce.
All right.
Thank you so much for sharing all that information. We at Data, we're going to have a table at the Town of Herndon pit stop and the bike lane pit stop. We will be giving away bike lights, and we will have another raffle at both of those stops. So feel free to stop by and say hi. The pit stops are always oh, we do have a question. We have a question from Namu. It seems like bike theft is on the rise. Bike keep seems like a good solution, but for locations without one, how can we help prevent theft even with a good lock? Do you have any?
Yeah, that's a good question. There is bike theft in the area, and a lot of it is focused around the metro stations. So the Wheelie Rest and East station has a secure bike room. It requires paying Fairfax County a yearly fee. I think it's about $60, but that allows you to have a fob to go in and park your bike in that bike room, and that's very secure. There's also a free bike room there, and that bike room is monitored by security, and they have good inverted U-racks and a good, what I would recommend is a good U-lock, which is a lock in the shape of a U that can be heavy to carry, but it's difficult to break. Unfortunately, thieves can break just about any lock that's out there. So you want to make sure, I mean, one of the good ways to avoid it is to park in an area that's seen by a lot of people, where there's eyes on the area, so that if someone is messing with the bike, it can be seen. But basically having a good lock parked against a good rack. And if you can manage to either rent a locker, a lot of all the metro stations have bike lockers that are fairly reasonable to rent, and that's another good option. Yeah.
Let's see, any other questions? All right, I'm going to do the drawing. And this is for a $50 gift certificate to the bike lane, which if you've never been there, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's where one of the pit stops will be on Bike to Work Day.
They have coffee and they have they brew their own beer, so they're a fun place. All right, so let's see, number 8, David Lamb. So David, are you still here? Just raise your hand, I guess. Oh, I see David. Okay, David, I have your email. I will follow up with you and get your address and get you your gift card. So congratulations. Thank you so much. We're so glad you participated, and we hope to see you out on the 19th of May.